we have some tea to spill. Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. It's Yvette, and I'm back with another video. Hallelujah. Happy Thanksgiving, or happy belated Thanksgiving. I am super late to the game. I haven't posted a video since August, September-ish, when I did a Mateen backpack review for you guys. And since then, I have my Christmas tree up. We got a new Christmas tree. It took a little while to convince my husband to get one. It's actually bigger than my freaking apartment, but it's okay. Since my last YouTube video, I have been off of orientation for, I think, 3 or 4 weeks now. So little less than a month I've been off of orientation. And I decided that I needed to sit down and make a video about my experience on orientation, because it's definitely not what I was expecting when I first got into OR nursing. So a little bit of background on my process into becoming an OR nurse. I did my nurse preceptorship in the OR and I fell in love with it. It was nothing like bedside nursing. Not that I got any bedside nursing in nursing school, because as you know, I went to PACE's ABSN program during the 2020 pandemic and everything was shut down. They didn't let us do any clinical. So I got zero clinical experience. My clinical experience was strictly online with a fake robot patient, and it just wasn't helpful for us. I'll get into that in another video. But nonetheless, I really enjoyed my time in the OR, and I decided, you know what, this is what I want to do when I get out of nursing school. I want to get my license and I want to be in the OR. That's what I want. So lucky for me, I was able to do it. I talked myself up enough to get in there. And let me tell you that it looks a lot easier than it is. So when I first got hired, I did a 2-week general orientational period, which actually some of my nursing school friends were in with me. And so that was for 2 weeks. So that we got people from the floor, we got people from the OR, we got people from PACU, we got people, from everywhere. And so that's excuse me, that's across the board. And then after that, everyone else went on their shift. And I had to stay and do an AORN Peri-Op 101 course. And this course lasted about a month long for me. I know for other hospitals, I've heard that this course could go on for months and months and months and months. They give you the information in more pieces. I got everything and crammed into 1 month, which, to be honest, was kind of like how I did nursing school. When you cram in an ABSN program, you're cramming 4 years of nursing into 11 months. So this experience was just nothing new to me. I'm used to the craziness that is nursing and the education that goes along with it. And this is like a didactic period. So you'll get a lecture with videos and things. You'll take quizzes. They'll give you a study guide at the end for each module that you complete. And then at the end, you have a big exam of 100 and something questions. This was a massive exam. I will be making a whole separate video on what exactly is covered in that Peri-Op 101 course. And just so I can get a little bit more in depth with you guys, because it kind of has it's too much for this video, So 2 weeks before your exam for Peri-Op 101 through ARN, you're gonna go through a observational period for 2 weeks. At least this is how they had it at my place. So before I took the exam, I was not allowed to touch anything. So I would just watch the nurse and the circulator, or the scrub nurse if I was supposed to be watching a scrub roll that time, or if I was supposed to be watching the circulator at that time. And I would just take lots and lots of notes. Once that 2-week observational period is up and you take your exam, then that's your orientation. That's when you start. That's when you start actually learning everything that you need to know about your job. How to interview the patient, what to look for in your pre-op assessment, how to review consent and paperwork and labs before surgery. All of those things, as well as everything that you need for the case and things like that, you will learn after your exam. And during this time that you're learning all of these things, you got to keep track of what you're learning. So my hospital had us do logs, and so I would log the case, the surgeon, how old the patient was, and what role I was participating in, as well as my preceptor. So sometimes I would do the scrub role, sometimes I would do the circulator role, and I had to keep track of all of those things in each specialty that I was traveling in. With preceptors comes evaluations. So your preceptor is supposed to write down what you're really good at, like what you were able to do that day, what you learned that day, as well as what you have to work on that day. And typically these evaluations will be filled out on a weekly basis. So then you have progress meetings, and you're gonna have a progress meeting with management, your educator, your preceptor, and you guys all get together and just express your concerns. This is like the time that you have to tell them, look, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. This is the time that I really like this preceptor. I feel like I learned well with this preceptor, whereas this preceptor I don't like, I don't really mesh well with. This is also a really good time for you to tell management that, look, I'm doing really well in general surgery, but I need more time in spine surgery and orthopedics. I need more time in vascular. I need more time in any other specialty that you feel like, oh, I don't really understand what's going on, or I don't really know the supplies and things that's going on here. And your preceptor can also help you to realize, oh, maybe I kind of really suck at this, but I'm really good at this, and vice versa. I really want to give you guys like some great advice since I got off of orientation. And that is, don't rush your orientation in the OR. I've gotten a few comments on my other video, the one where I was like, oh, I'm a new grad nurse and stuff. I filmed that video like literally, I think a month or two into orientation. I still didn't know anything. And a few comments said, oh, 6 months orientation is too long. And I could not disagree more. If anything, a 6-month orientation, I think, is the shortest that I've heard for the OR. Because your orientation is supposed to be about a year. Like your 1 year anniversary, you reevaluate and then you go on to be independent. Because the OR has nothing to do with nursing school whatsoever, you're not getting any of this information in a didactic year or anything like that, with the exception of that AORN peri-op course. Like if you didn't have that AORN peri-op course, we'd be all dead. Because everything you have to learn on the job. With that being said, my orientation if you count the AORN prep course, like the 2 weeks of general orientation, things like that, my orientation was close to 9 months. And towards the end, I was already like very fed up about it. I would actually like go back and forth. I was like, okay, I'm ready to get off. And then the next day would come and then like something would trip me up or something like that. I'm like, no, I'm too scared to get off. I don't want to get off yet. I need more time. Because at the end of the day, this is your license. This is your license that you worked so hard for. So you need to realize when you are ready to get off of orientation. And it can't be, oh, because my preceptor is nitpicky about what I'm doing or not doing. Because it'll happen. Like sometimes, and I feel like that's true with floor nursing as well. You get some nurse preceptors that are much pickier than others. Like some of them just care about, okay, patient safety, and that's it. Everything else is up to your discretion because nurses practice differently. And the way that one nurse might do something is different than the way that another nurse might do something. And we get a lot of that with travel nurses. So travel nurses come from different places and they bring in different techniques that we're not used to, and then we all get tripped up. Same thing when you're on orientation. You might get a preceptor you mesh really well with, and they answer all of your questions. You feel like you can come to them, like you can trust them, you work well together in conjunction, and then you're gonna get a preceptor that is going to try and test you and, dare I say, bully you or make you feel bad about the way that you're doing things, and it's normal, unfortunately. So with that being said, my next piece of advice is to stick to one preceptor if you can. If it is all possible, stick to one person. Because again, one nurse might differ from the other nurse, might differ from the other nurse. So what was happening to me was I was learning things from one nurse and doing the same thing that I learned from that first nurse with a second nurse. And that nurse would say, oh, well, this is all wrong. I don't know who's teaching you this, but this is all wrong. You got to do it like this. Go back to the first nurse and be like, I don't know who's teaching you that. That's wrong. You can't do this. And then you would go to a third nurse and they would possibly say, well, they're both wrong and you need to reevaluate what you're learning because none of this is correct. And so if you can't, stick to one preceptor, because you're going to pick up things that you like from each preceptor. It's just the hassle of having to explain to them that this is what you learned in the first time or whatever the case may be. It's just easier to have one person. If it's your nurse educator, even better. Unfortunately, in my place, my nurse educator was not around, only for progress meetings. So she never knew exactly where I was in my progress unless I told her, or my preceptors told her. I think it's much easier when the nurse educator is also the one precepting you. Next piece of advice that I have is to ask so many questions. Ask all of the questions. No question is a stupid question. Trust me. You think it's a stupid question until something comes along and then it bites you in the butt and then you're like, oh crap. I could have probably avoided all of this if I would have just asked or told somebody. Because you may think that you're on your own in the OR and you're not. You have a whole team. You have anesthesia. You have the attending. You have your scrub. You have the front desk, your charge nurse, all of those people up at the front that are there to help you if you get stuck with something. So you're never alone. Always ask questions. I'm off of orientation now for a month and I'm still asking a million questions because there's things that I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna be like that for a little while because what I'm hearing is that your first year on your own is hard. I mean, your first year in general is really hard, but your first year on your own, you're like finding your workflow. You're getting everything together in your head about what you need to do. And then you also have to memorize a bunch of things. And it's just ask a lot of questions. That's it. With that, asking a lot of questions, look up all of the policies at your hospital. I know that it's super tedious, but that first 2 weeks that you're supposed to be reading policies and all that stuff, just do it. Do it. Because at the end of the day, when push comes to shove and this preceptor is telling you that you're wrong, this one other is telling you that you're right, like people are arguing about something, at the end of the day, what wins is the policy. Whatever the hospital says goes. My next piece of advice is to stick to one specialty at a time. Oh my Lord. So while I was on orientation, my OR is pretty small and it almost functions like a glorified surgery center. So I don't get absolutely everything. Like we don't have vascular, we don't have, like our general surgery is very simple. So I was having to hop from thing to thing because on certain days we had more of one specialty than the other. For example, on Tuesdays we have ortho. On Thursdays there was a lot of podiatry cases. Monday, Friday, maybe you'll get some GYN. Things like that. Like mostly every day we maybe would get spine. Happens is for example, my schedule would look like Monday spine, Tuesday ortho, Wednesday podiatry, Thursday general, Friday GYN. Like my specialties were all over the place. And so what happens is you start to confuse equipment, sutures, supplies, things like that, positioning, everything. You start to compile everything together and you start to confuse one thing with the other. And we don't need that. So what I suggest is that you spend like 2 or 3 weeks in one specialty, move on to the next specialty, if at all possible. This will just help you with consistency as well as when you have the same preceptor in that specialty. Oh my God, chef's kiss. I know that this is gonna sound counterintuitive. Hear me out. So have notes on your phone about the cases, but don't rely on your notes at work, if that makes any sense. Like if you're like really in a pinch and you really don't know and you really can't ask the surgeon, then look it up in your notes. But try as much as possible to do things on your own because it gets your mind used to thinking that way, and then you pick things up faster when you're not like constantly like looking at your notes, your notebook, your phone, whatever the case may be. So do take notes on surgeon preferences and stuff, but like the grand scheme of things, try and do that stuff on your own, because it will be so much more beneficial to you in the long run. My last thing, I know this is gonna sound
again counterintuitive
from what I said in the beginning of, you know, take your time with your orientation and all that stuff. You may feel at one point or another in your orientation that you're like, oh my God, I'm never gonna be ready to get off of orientation. I'm never gonna be ready to do this on my own. This is crazy. This is stressful. This is this and that. It's okay. It's okay to feel like you're not ready to get off of orientation. However, when it's been a few months and you feel like you've been exposed to things, don't let your anxiety and nervousness also get the best of you. You know more, way more than you think. You are also capable of way more than you think. It takes me back to my point of asking a lot of questions and also relying on the fact that you have a team. It's not just you. What happened to me was I felt towards the end of orientation like I would never be off of orientation. I felt like I was not good enough to be off of orientation. And even though I was getting reassurance from preceptors, it was almost like I didn't believe them. It was the hardest thing for me to compile because I was never by myself. So I always saw it as like, oh, the only reason why today was a good day or whatever is because I had somebody with me, helping me, things like that. The only way that you are going to feel confident and independent is for you to be independent already off of orientation. Oh my gosh, I feel like a weight was lifted off of my shoulders when I got off of orientation, because I knew that I had self-accountability for all of my stuff. Then I didn't have to worry about me and someone else. And that person also didn't have to worry about themselves and myself. The best thing that you could do is get off of orientation, okay? But when you're ready to be off of orientation, and not just because of your anxiety, that's what I'm trying to say. Don't not get off of orientation just because of anxiety. It is okay. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching my videos, and I look forward to making more videos like this in the future. Please let me know what kind of OR related or book related, I haven't done any book videos in a little while, or nursing school related videos you guys want to see, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.